From real living dinosaurs caught on camera to a 445-million-year-old creature still roaming the earth today, these are prehistoric creatures caught on camera that you'd think would be extinct. This video supposedly shows a woolly mammoth crossing a river in Siberia. It quickly went viral, racking up 3 million views on YouTube and more. People couldn't help but wonder if the mammoth had been living for centuries in remote parts of Siberia, completely untouched by humans. Now, whether you think this video is a hoax or not, there have been some interesting reports of supposed living mammoths. They're believed to have gone extinct over 10,000 years ago, but there are still stories floating around about them being spotted in some of the world's most remote places, especially in the northern hemisphere's tundra. Native American tribes have been telling tales about these creatures for years. The Northeast Algonquins talked about a great moose with a weird extra limb growing between its shoulders that it used to prepare its bed. The Naskapi people from northeastern Labrador spoke of a monster with a long nose that it would use to hit people. Even Siberian tribesmen have reported seeing large, shaggy beasts roaming around, though no one's actually caught solid proof. There have been mammoth sightings across Asia, South America, North America, and Russia. What you're looking at here is a massive-sized sturgeon. The footage originally posted by Ronald Drago was shared and reposted all over the internet, and it's easy to see why. The creature is just a monster. The sturgeon is an ancient creature that's been around since the early Jurassic period. Some of these fish can grow over 20 feet long, which is as big as a great white shark. They mostly feed on small animals from the ocean floor and are harmless to humans, but because of their size, they can still pose a threat. There have been reports of sturgeons leaping out of the water, landing on boats, and causing serious injuries or even death. They can weigh over 1,000 pounds. This footage here was posted to YouTube by Adam Pitts, who'd hauled in this Jurassic-era-sized beast in Florida. A bunch of hunters had been trying to snag this thing because it was responsible for some deaths. No surprise there. This gator was not missing out on any meals. Pitts and his team had a long battle with the gator before finally hauling it out of the lake. It was about 12'8". It's sad, but unfortunately some animal populations just need to be controlled sometimes, especially when it comes to people's safety. This wasn't just a hunt for the thrill of it, it was for the protection of the community. This is not an AI video. This is a real piece of footage taken back in 2018 at a golf course in South Carolina. This gator was caught strolling through the golf course on its way to somewhere. It's become a pretty famous video. The event was taken by multiple people from different angles. Video of it showed up on the news, and it's understandable. It looks like footage of a living dinosaur. Even the family of deer in the background just couldn't help stand there in total shock. Like, what are we looking at right now? They're standing there like a deer in headlights. Alright, I guess deer aren't really all that hard to surprise. But still, gators are some of the oldest animals on the planet. I still find it so cool that you really are looking at a living dinosaur when you see one. This footage here was captured by members of a Japanese expedition crew in the Congo. They were seeking out evidence of an elusive animal known to the locals as Mokele Membe, a plesiosaur-like creature believed by some cryptozoologists to be a remnant of the Cretaceous period. Mokele Membe comes from Bantu mythology. It's said to live in the Congo River Basin. It's described in different ways. Some say it's a reptilian creature, others think of it as a spirit, but the most popular description is an ancient dinosaur-like sauropod. In the early 1900s, cryptozoologists got really interested in this legend, with some launching expeditions to find proof of the creature's existence. Most experts believe that the stories about Mokele Membe are probably based on sightings of the black rhinoceros, which used to roam the region. Some even think the myth may have been influenced from earlier tales about Great Zimbabwe.
For decades, people across the US have reported sightings of hairless creatures rummaging through trash or crossing backyards. Many assumed these were cryptids or mangy coyotes. In many cases, they were actually raccoons. Sarcoptic mange can explain most of these sightings, but in several documented incidents in Pennsylvania and Texas, veterinarians found raccoons with no mites, no infection, and no disease. Their hair just simply never grew. Their skin was unusually thick and sensitive, and genetic testing didn't reveal a single clear mutation. Environmental triggers have been suggested, but no one has pinned down down the cause. The phenomenon has shown up in scattered, unrelated populations across the country, but what makes it so confusing, it's not spreading like a disease. It's just appearing randomly, again and again. In 2017, a farmer in Georgia was stunned when one of his goats gave birth to a baby with 8 fully formed legs. Spider goat. Veterinarians confirmed the extra limbs were not just small growths, they were actual legs attached at the torso in a way that suggested embryonic twinning. Usually when an embryo splits and doesn't separate completely, you get conjoined twins. But this goat had only one head and one set of organs. That made its mutation unique. Despite its deformity, the goat lived for weeks after birth and became a media sensation. Scientists couldn't fully explain how the extra limbs formed so symmetrically or why its internal development stayed singular. It remains one of the strangest livestock cases ever documented. In 2011, a group of fishermen caught a dusky shark in the Gulf of California. When they opened the pregnant shark, they found a fetus with one perfectly centered eye. A marine biologist examined the specimen and confirmed it was a genuine case of cyclopia. The mutation happens early in embryonic development and usually leads to fatal defects, but this shark fetus was otherwise completely normal. Scans showed its organs and skeletal structure were healthy. The only abnormality was its single, fully developed eye. Scientists preserved the shark for study, but to this day they can't explain why this case was so biologically clean compared to most other occurrences. In 2018, pig farmers in China began reporting litters with bizarre facial deformities. Some piglets had snouts that curved upwards like a trunk. Others had eyes misplaced on their heads or unusually shaped ears. Veterinary teams investigated dozens of cases. The piglets didn't show signs of chemical exposure or infection, and genetic testing didn't find a consistent mutation either. The deformities appeared randomly in unrelated herds, then faded away months later. Many piglets were otherwise healthy, which made the phenomenon even stranger. While the leading theories point to spontaneous genetic errors triggered by environmental stress, no one has been able to prove it. To this day, it's one of China's most unexplained farm animal anomalies. Two-headed snakes have fascinated and unsettled people for decades, but what makes some of these cases truly mysterious isn't just their appearance, it's how they survive. In 2019, a two-headed copperhead snake was found in Virginia. Instead of dying after a few days like most do, it lived under observation for months. Both heads were fully functional and shared one body, constantly competing over food and movement. This condition, called bicephaly, is rare but well documented. What scientists can't fully explain is how some of these snakes develop coordination between the two heads. A few have survived over a decade in captivity. The neurological adaptation required for two brains to share one body and function well is still not understood. In 2015, marine biologist David Gruber made a discovery in the Solomon Islands that left researchers speechless. While diving at night, his team encountered a glowing hawksbill sea turtle emitting bright green and red light. This was the first biofluorescent reptile ever documented. Unlike bioluminescent creatures that create their own light, this turtle absorbed surrounding light and re-emitted it in neon colors. Scientists were able to record it and study it, but they still don't fully understand how or why a sea turtle would evolve this ability. It doesn't match typical defense mechanisms or camouflage patterns. This discovery was published in National Geographic and stunned the scientific community. It proved that even large, well-studied species can still hold incredible secrets. Picture this. A goat walking down a dusty road on two legs like a person. That's exactly what villagers in Bihar, India saw in 2015. A baby goat was born missing its hind legs. Instead of struggling to survive, it did something incredible. It learned to balance upright on its front legs and walk. Locals captured the goat on video and it quickly went viral. Veterinarians examined it and found no neurological issues. The goat's spine and muscles had simply adapted to its new reality. Experts have documented animals adapting to missing limbs before, but what stunned scientists was how efficiently this goat moved. It walked with posture and rhythm almost identical to a human's gait. There was no training, no help, just raw survival instinct. Even now, researchers say they still don't fully understand how it achieved such perfect balance. In 2013, Spanish fishermen discovered something disturbing inside a pregnant blue shark, a fully formed two-headed embryo. Both heads had functional gills, eyes, and brains. This wasn't an isolated incident either. Similar two-headed shark embryos have been discovered in the Gulf of Mexico, Japan, and Argentina. Marine biologists confirmed the cases in studies published in Journal of Fish Biology. This condition happens when an embryo begins to split but never fully separates. It's rare in any species, but in sharks, it's exceptionally unusual. What puzzles scientists is why these cases have increased in the last decade. Some think pollution or environmental stress may play a role. Others say it might be genetic instability from population declines, but there is still no clear answer. The two-headed embryos usually don't survive long, but their increasing appearance is leaving experts uneasy. In 2017, biologists in Costa Rica documented something extraordinary: a frog whose entire body was see-through. Transparent frogs, known as glass frogs, already exist in nature, but this one wasn't just translucent. It was completely clear. Its beating heart, stomach, and liver were fully visible through its skin. Genetic testing showed it didn't match any previously cataloged species. The frog wasn't sick or albino either. Researchers studied it carefully but couldn't determine why or how the mutation happened. Transparency like this gives no clear evolutionary advantage and had never been recorded at this level in a wild amphibian. The frog lived a normal lifespan and appeared healthy, but its mutation remains one of the most puzzling amphibian cases of the last decade. In 2017, a farmer in Assam, India, witnessed something he described as, quote, otherworldly. One of his goats gave birth to a baby with a single, large eye positioned in the center of its forehead, kind of like that lady from Futurama. Veterinarians diagnosed the newborn with cyclopia, a rare congenital disorder caused by abnormal development of the front portion of the brain. The goat also had a missing nose and fused eyelids. What makes this case so mysterious is how well developed the rest of the body was. In most animals, this condition is fatal early in development, but this goat was born alive and even survived for several days. Experts said the chances of this happening naturally are astronomically low. Photos and footage were verified by local veterinary authorities, and the case gained international scientific attention.
We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the coelacanth. You're not gonna believe this, but these fish were around when dinosaurs roamed the earth. In fact, they were believed to have gone extinct alongside the dinosaurs. Then, millions of years later, they were rediscovered. In the 19th century, scientists discovered a fossil of this fish. This fossil was over 410 million years old. They thought they went extinct around 66 million years ago. So it shocked scientists quite a bit when in 1938, they rediscovered them off the coast of South Africa. They're just alive and thriving. In our 4th spot, we have the singing dog. This animal has been named the singing dog due to their distinctive howl. Sometimes they howl together to form kind of like a choir. Apparently their howls sound like a cross between a wolf's howl and a whale's song. They are also called the New Guinea Highland dogs and are closely related to the Australian dingo. Now, wildlife biologists thought that these animals went extinct sometime in the 1970s. However, in 2016, they were rediscovered in a remote region of New Guinea. Tests were run on them and it was confirmed that they were the same breed. In our 3rd spot, we have the tree lobster, which is not an animal, so I'm technically cheating having it on today's list because it's an insect, but who cares, okay? The tree lobster is a large black stick insect. In fact, it is said to be one of the rarest insects on Earth. Back in the day, they were popular for fishing, as they were used for fishing bait. But by the 1920s, they were said to be extinct. Basically, a ship accidentally crashed onto an island and rats aboard the ship got introduced onto onto the island and threatened these species. But later on, a pair of Australian scientists discovered 24 of these bugs living beneath a single shrub. They ended up taking 2 pairs, breeding them, and then reintroducing more of these insects to help repopulate them. In our second spot today, we have the night parrot. Night parrots are often referred to as one of the world's most mysterious birds. They were first discovered in 1845 and were extremely rare to spot. That's because they come out at night and only in remote areas. Even then, there had not been a single sighting of these birds for 100 years, so they were declared extinct. That was until 1979 when a number of them were spotted again. In fact, this bird is the holy grail for bird watchers. Some spend decades hoping to get a glimpse of this bird up close. And in our number 1 spot today, we had the Kashmir musk deer. But I like to call them the vampire deer because they have vampire fangs. So these deer are native to Afghanistan, India, Pakistan, and western Nepal. It was believed that they went extinct in 1948 until they were rediscovered in 2009. However, they are badly endangered. It's said that there are less than 5,000 musk deer throughout the world. The main reason being is because they are a very popular target for hunters. Hunters like to kill them for their musk glands, which are often used in perfumes. They are said to be a rare aphrodisiac and can sell for around $45,000 per kilogram. Now, it is illegal to hunt for them, but that still doesn't stop people. Starting off this countdown, we have the extinct bat. In 2019, the Hill's horseshoe bat species were spotted for the first time in 40 years. The bats are home to a Rwandan rainforest. Scientists figured that they were endangered and had gone extinct already, since they hadn't seen them in years. That was until 2019 when scientists were on a 10-day expedition, and they came across these little guys. But when they first captured the bat, they didn't know how great their discovery was going to be. One scientist said, and I quote, "We knew immediately that the bat we had captured was unusual and remarkable. The facial features were exaggerated to the point of being comical. It took them 3 years to then identify what species this bat belonged to. Once they did, that's when they realized that this bat was brought back to life." In our 9th spot, we have Catagonus wagneri. Back in the day, this animal was discovered from early fossil records. They were thought to be extinct and people only knew about them because of the fossils. That was until 1974. That's when a biology professor from University of Connecticut rediscovered them while on a research expedition. In fact, the species was well known to the native people there. However, they are badly endangered. A huge population of them live in a 2,400-acre area in Grand Chaco. They hide out in the bushy, thorny areas so that they're safe from predators and local hunters. Sadly, only approximately 3,000 remain in the world. Moving on to number 8, we have tarsier. Now these guys are undeniably cute. Just look at its eyes, like they're so cute and big for its tiny little body. But strangely enough, scientists still don't know much about them. One of the reasons being is that scientists thought that they went extinct in the 1920s. But in May of the early 2000s, while checking a rat trap that they had set in the forest, scientists discovered that they had actually caught a pygmy tarsier. Sadly, it had died in the trap. But that's what let them know that they were still alive, minus that one. Then in 2008, researchers found a family of them in Lore Lindu National Park. Nowadays, it's believed that there are only 5,000 to 10,000 of these animals in the whole world. And that number is sadly falling again instead of rising. Now this is because these little creatures don't live too long in captivity. In fact, when they are in distress, they apparently try to take their own lives. So that's a reason why it's hard to look after these little guys and keep them off the endangered list. In our 7th spot today, we have the goblin shark. Now if you all have been a fan of this channel for a while, then you guys know that I hate this guy. Like, I'm not scared of sharks, but this guy, like, he's terrifying. He doesn't even look like a shark. He looks like a mutated shark, like a shark that scientists tried to cross with a human or something. Anyways, goblin sharks were believed to have gone extinct millions of years ago. That was until 1891 when researchers spotted it off the coast of Japan. Instantly, they were confused, but also scared, because again, look at this thing. What they found the weirdest though is that this shark barely changed over time. They didn't evolve at all. They still look the exact same, hence why they are called a living fossil. So these creatures can grow 12 feet long and can weigh up to 460 pounds. But in 2000, Then they found a giant goblin shark that was 20 feet long. So now researchers say that they have no real idea about how big they can truly get. Now the scariest part about them is that they have these weird ligaments in their jaw, and that allows them to extend their mouths out and snatch up their prey. Plus, their mouths launch out pretty fast. That's also why it makes their mouth look so creepy, you know? In our sixth spot, we have the tequila fish. And it's a very interesting name for a fish. I hope their relatives are called the vodka fish. So these fish disappeared from the Mexican wild in 2003. This was due to pollution and invasive species. People thought there was no hope, that these fish were just gonna die off. But turns out that conservationists were able to bring them back to life after a decades-long operation. Basically, scientists at Michoacán University in Mexico took 5 pairs of these fish in 1998. They then kept the fish safe, studied them, and then they made them reproduce to develop a larger colony. After 4 years in artificial ponds, scientists were able to increase these 5 fish to 10,000. However, only 1,500 were released back into the wild. And apparently the released fish are thriving and reproducing out in the wild.
How's this for an animal name? The night-armored catfish. Pretty cool, but does it live up to its name? Well, this is one right here. Divers in northern Brazil were exploring the Xingu River, hoping to find some Asacu preto, a thorny black fish often sold in the aquarium trade. Well, it turns out these fish hadn't been documented by science yet. After teaming up with local fishermen and digging through museum collections, scientists realized that this was a brand new species which they named Pseudacanthicus nictos, or the night-armored catfish. These fish can grow up to 10 inches long and have completely black eyes, forked teeth, and their bodies are covered in armor-like plates and thorny spikes. Living in the murky depths of the river, they're usually found around submerged logs, sometimes as deep as 65 feet. As you could probably tell, they're carnivores, feeding on small aquatic animals. They're also very territorial. The males can get very aggressive, especially when sharing space with other males. Off the coast of Belize, anglers unknowingly caught a new species of shark between 2016 and 2019. First they thought they'd just landed another hammerhead, but something about the shark's unique shovel-shaped heads made scientists take a closer look. And after analyzing the shark's body shape, skeleton, and DNA, researchers realized these were part of a completely new species, the shovelbill shark. These small sharks, measuring up to 3 feet 4 inches long, have these very unique, flat, shovel-looking heads. They're found in coastal waters, estuaries, coral reefs, and seagrass beds from Belize all the way to Brazil. They're often caught by anglers, and experts warn that they may already be highly threatened. As co-author of the study, Damian Chapman said, "It is tragic that we have only just recognized that this species exists, and we are already running against the clock to prevent its extinction." Yeah, that is very sad, especially because these sharks are kind of cute, you know? Off the coast of Saudi Arabia, researchers exploring coral reefs discovered this tiny, really upset-looking fish, and honestly, I think if I looked like this, I would also be in a pretty bad mood all the time. While diving in the Red Sea, they released clove oil into an underwater cave to sedate the fish inside, and a small dark red goby floated to the surface. At first, they weren't sure what species it was, and after several sightings and a few more catches, they figured out why. This was not a species they'd ever seen before. This little fish, only about half an inch long, had a severely curved mouth that gave it this sort of grumpy look. Researchers named it the grumpy dwarf goby because of this permanently unhappy looking facial expression. The fish is incredibly rare, with only 10 specimens found during extensive collections along the Saudi Arabian coast, said the researchers. They live in small caves, rocky overhangs, or crevices about 32 to 100 feet below the surface. Again, in the caves of southern China, researchers discovered a fish which they'd named Liu's cave loach, a new species swimming through heavily polluted water. The creatures caught the attention of scientists visiting the area in 2023. Spelled out for you here is their scientific name, but again, they're also called Liu's cave loach for short. They can grow up to 2.5 inches long. They have elongated bodies covered in tiny scales with bright yellow fins. Their snouts are lined with whiskers, almost like a catfish, and their their eyes have a yellowish hue. They live in underground rivers and cave pools, but don't show the usual traits of cave-dwelling species. They were also found breeding in a cave pond, despite the water being heavily polluted from nearby sugar factories and duck farms. So far, Liu's cave loaches have only been found in the caves of Yifeng District, Guangxi, a province in southern China near the Vietnam border. Deep beneath the surface of the ocean, researchers have discovered 3 brand new species of sea stars living in some of the most remote and bizarre environments on Earth. The sea stars were found thousands of feet below the surface at methane seeps in underwater valleys using remote-controlled vehicles during surveys between 2003 and 2018. One of the new species showing up on screen in text right now because I don't have a week to learn how to pronounce that. Anyway, it was discovered off the coast of Costa Rica about 3,200 feet down. With flower-like patterns of small plates on its back, these creatures move along the seafloor using tube feet that extend down each arm. Another species, Hymonostella davidalani, also found in Costa Rica, looks similar but has thorny, elongated spines along the edge of its body. The third species, Cayman Ostella lorisae, has short spines covered in thick skin, and interestingly, all mature specimens looked identical. These deep sea stars seem to live around stuff that sinks to the bottom of the ocean, like sunken wood, which gives them shelter and food. And researchers still aren't sure if the sea stars eat only the wood or if they have other food sources down there. Well, this is exciting. This news just came out the other day. In the waters off the Solomon Islands, there is a sea creature so massive it could be seen from space. In fact, it's one of the largest living organisms on Earth, a colossal coral colony. Discovered by a team of researchers and filmmakers, this coral is roughly the size of 2 basketball courts. Unlike most coral reefs, which are made up of different colonies, this one is an individual organism made up of millions of tiny animals called polyps. The species is Pavona clavus, and its size and slow growth suggests it's been around for centuries. Underwater photographer Manu Sanfelix, who first saw it last month, was in awe, saying, quote, "It's a dream to see something unique like this. When Napoleon was alive, this thing was here," end quote. Before this discovery, the largest known coral was in American Samoa, measuring about 22 meters wide, but as marine conservation expert Stacy Jupiter points out, humans have only surveyed about 5% of the planet's marine realm. That means there could still be larger corals hidden out in uncharted waters. What you're looking at here is a newly discovered creature. Again, news about this one just came out the other day. In the Monterey Canyon off California, marine biologist Bruce Robison made a discovery back in 2000. While exploring with robotic vehicles, he came across a strange gelatinous blob with a giant hood, finger-like projections, and colorful internal organs. Fast forward nearly 25 years, and Robison, along with colleague Stephen Haddock, which is a great name for someone who studies fish, they have finally solved the mystery. They've identified this bizarre creature as a brand new type of nudibranch, or sea slug. Now, unlike other sea slugs that crawl along the ocean floor though, this one floats. Looks a lot more like a jellyfish. Even more astonishing, this new nudibranch can jet backward by expelling water from its hood. The hood, as it turns out, is like a Venus flytrap, capable of expanding and contracting to trap its prey. The creature is also bioluminescent and has both male and female reproductive organs. A pretty fascinating little creature. These are recently discovered octopus species. Roughly 2 miles beneath the surface of the Pacific Ocean near Costa Rica, scientists found 4 brand new species of octopus during expeditions in June and December of last year. It all started when researchers spotted pink octopus hatchlings coming out from their eggs at a place known as El Dorado Hill. Jorge Cortez Nunez, a researcher from the University of Costa Rica, said it was unexpected to find so many species of octopus in a small area, first, and second, at 3,000 meters depth. In June, researchers using a remotely operated vehicle named Sebastian found 2 octopus nurseries around hydrothermal springs on the sea floor. They discovered that these octopuses seemed to prefer the warm waters from the vents, which helps shorten their long incubation period. The warm water gives the eggs a better chance of surviving in the cold, dark depths. One of the new species was even given an unofficial nickname, the Dorado octopus, after the spot where it was found. The species has short arms and small eyes, similar to the pearl octopus found off California. The other species had bigger eyes and longer arms. The fourth species is especially mysterious, with bumpy pale skin and a strange row of suckers on each arm. In total, about 310 deep-sea octopus specimens were collected. What you're looking at here is a recently discovered species of fish in China. You'll notice that it doesn't have eyes. They kind of look like raw chicken cutlets or something else that I can't really describe on here. And those dark patches that you see, those are its internal organs. Deep in an underground river in southern China, scientists found these blind pink fish with no eyes. They were swimming in the dark depths of a cave system in Guangxi when researchers first encountered them during surveys between 2019 and 2024. They were on the hunt for Chinese karst loaches, but quickly realized that this fish didn't match any known species. After studying it, the team confirmed that they had discovered a new species. This is the overly complicated scientific name on screen now, so I'll use the nickname Dachshund Chinese karst loach. These tiny fish are only about an inch long and have elongated bodies with no scales. They also have wide heads, narrow mouths, and whisker-like thingies on their heads, but again, no eyes. Researchers believe this species, like others in the area, lives in deep caves with underground rivers and is rarely seen by people. In November of last year, anglers off the coast of Pakistan reeled in a strange catch, a quote, torpedo-shaped predator with teeth on its tongue. At first they thought it was a regular fish, but researchers Sherkan Panwara and Imtiaz Kashani soon realized they'd actually found something new. And after examining these fish in the lab, they discovered not one, but two new species. The first was Rachicentron blotchi, or the blotchy cobia. These predators are about 3 feet long, weigh around 8 pounds, and have small eyes, pointed snouts, and tiny teeth on their jaws, the roof of their mouths, and yes, even their tongues. Inside their stomachs, they found a mix of small fish, crustaceans, and cephalopods. Second species, Rachicentron marquiensis, or the macron cobia, is smaller, about 2.5 feet long, and weighs about 6 pounds. It has a short, pointed head, small teeth, and a greenish coloring with a gray band running along its side. Its stomach contained mostly digested material and some crab parts. Now, stepping away from frogmen, aliens, and Sasquatch for a moment, let's talk about some mysterious jellyfish that were spotted just a few months back. The video shows two types of jellyfish that no one's ever seen before. At least ones that haven't been documented by science. The footage comes from researchers at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA. First up is this one here. A very bizarre looking creature. It's so hard to make sense of. It's just so different from anything we see day to day here on land. Almost looks like it belongs in space. As one of the researchers said while filming the thing though, I've never seen one of those. Have you? And then another researcher's like, nope. They also captured footage of this smaller jellyfish. NOAA scientists couldn't identify this one either. Both were found during a deep sea dive off the northeastern coast of the US near Newport, Rhode Island. We see so many supposed videos of Bigfoot, but barely ever any dogman videos. Well, that all changes today. This dashcam footage comes out of Bladensboro, North Carolina. A man drove up to his property late at night when he got the fright of his life. Some big hairy creature had been lurking just outside his home, but his headlights hit it and the thing scuttled off into the trees. Not in the most graceful manner, I must add. This dogman is rather dainty in its movements, does this kind of toddler hop as it moves away. It can't be too hard on Dogman though. He's not as used to being in the spotlight, always being outshined by the ever so famous Sasquatch. Well, you wanted clear footage of a cryptid. here it is. It's not often we get supposed Sasquatch footage this clear and up close. Usually these videos are shot from a distance and the creature is almost impossible to make out. I know I say this almost every time I show a Bigfoot video, but understand that I sift through a lot of garbage and I just don't bother putting most of these videos on lists like this because these videos aren't meant to put you to sleep. Although if you use them for that, I'm not offended. Close your eyes, go back to bed. Is this video genuine though? I mean, how can I say for sure? I do like it, I'll say that. There's more going on here than a monkey suit from Party City. This thing looks to have some bulk to it. There's color variation in the fur. If it is a hoax, I think it's pretty well done. Well, this is a freaky piece of footage. Not only is there a massive dead cow floating through the water, there's something under it. Gonna guess that something was involved in the death of the cow. I mean, good lord, look at the size of this thing. There's a full-on dinosaur swimming in this river. Of course, this is a croc or a gator. I couldn't actually find where this video was filmed, but the thing is an absolute beast. I know, very insightful of me. Take a look at this strange photo. Picture was snapped on Navajo land between cornfields and Greasewood, Arizona. It's been making the rounds on social media lately. According to the person who shared it, her aunt snapped the picture at the end of a small canyon after hearing weird noises while tending livestock on her property. There's not much more info about it, other than claims that the creature was seen again a few days later. The family chose not to go after it. They figured it was best to just leave it alone. Wise. Apparently stories about creatures like this have been told in the area for generations though. What do you think of this one? Only explanation that I have outside of this being a genuine Sasquatch, of course, is a black bear. There are black bears in Arizona. I'm not sure if they frequent this specific area. If anyone from Arizona can enlighten me in the comments, that would be great. A video from Buenos Aires this week has gotten people talking about possible demons or something strange. Very strange. This short blurry clip that's been getting shared around quite a bit on social media, at least on the forums I check out, shows what looks like a street or garden in Argentina. Here we can see some sort of bizarre dark figure crawling on all fours toward the camera while a few dogs walk around in the background. The creature seems to have very long spindly limbs, but it's hard to see clearly because it's dark and the video quality isn't really the best. Local news says this happened in the town of Saladillo, and people living there are reportedly scared of whatever it was. Some witnesses have called it demonic and say it has inhuman agility that lets it climb walls and jump between trees. A local firefighter who didn't want to give his name said that, quote, something was going on. Another witness added, he's something big. He doesn't walk on all fours, he walks backwards. He's disjointed, he comes apart, his head is upside down while his body moves in an impossible way. All of that said in Spanish. Of course, this series of photos were posted to Reddit a couple weeks back by SnakeTree1911, who wrote, I work as a land steward in the northeastern part of the US. Part of my job is reviewing images taken by our game cams. We recently pulled a cam from a fairly remote area, which hasn't been checked in a long time. These images caught my eye. None of the naturalists on our staff could ID this thing. I'm not sure if I believe in cryptids or whatever, but I don't know what this thing is. It's not a deer, it certainly isn't a bobcat, and if it's a black bear, it's the biggest one I've ever seen. I included a daytime photo so you can see that it's not just some weird shaped rock or whatever. I don't know, let me know what you think. And I will pose that same question to all you fine people watching. What do you think? Did a fisherman just capture footage of the real-life gill man? Apparently a guy was fishing near Barnegat Bay in eastern New Jersey when he saw something poke its head out of the water. He had no idea what he was looking at. The more he looked at it, the thing just kept rising and rising until the whole upper half of its body was out of the water, and it was clear that this was not your ordinary animal. I mean, yikes. How'd you like to be swimming in the water with this thing? I gotta say, this creature looks pretty convincing. Definitely gives me the ick, but there are a couple fun comments that I wanna mention as well. One person says, "This is BS. If anyone saw that, they'd run, not record for 3 minutes," which, you know, fair enough. I can see where they're coming from there, but someone else responded, "It's called a stare down. The person out of fear and the frog out of confusion. Hence the term scared stiff." Also a good point, but I really just love that they called this thing a frog. And also someone else commented, "This is what happens when people stop eating frog legs." People just love calling this guy a frog. I don't know what frogs you people are looking at, but anyway. This next clip was shared by Sunny Vader on YouTube. The footage was captured by campers in Clearwater County, Alberta last month. The uploader had been tearing down their camp when they spotted this large, dark figure lurking in the trees nearby. He managed to quietly capture the thing on camera before it made its way back into the woods. They probably thought it was a bear at first, but after zooming in on the thing with the camera, they probably immediately changed their mind. It seems to be standing upright. Not that bears can't do that, but they usually won't for very long. It looks to me like this is a massive, hairy ape man spying on a couple hikers in the woods. On March 21st, something strange was spotted floating low over the rooftops in Saladin, Iraq, and yes, there's video of it. So as you can see, this strange object has a very odd shape. It looks like you took a flying saucer and then made it vertical. It almost looks like Boba Fett's Slave One from Star Wars. It also looks like it has these long trailing tendrils like a jellyfish, not like any drone I've ever seen. The object drifted smoothly over the buildings and a local managed to capture it on camera. The clip quickly spread online, just another piece of video to add to the growing list of UFO sightings this year. People who saw it described it as otherworldly and eerily silent. Some think it might be high-tech military equipment, others think this may actually be proof of something not from this world. But what do you all think?
Cap d'Oie is one of the strangest skulls ever put on display. The story claims that it came from a 12-foot tall, two-headed giant discovered in Argentina in the 1600s. Eventually, the preserved skull made its way to England, where it was exhibited in various oddity museums. While some dismiss it as a hoax, X-rays and surface scans of the skull show bone structures that are hard to replicate artificially. It has two distinct cranial cavities and a jaw structure that doesn't match any known primate. Without verified DNA testing, no one knows if it's a clever fake or a relic from a forgotten chapter of evolution. In 2008, paleontologists discovered fossil remains in Madagascar that belonged to a frog so massive it earned the nickname devil frog. The Beelzebufo skull measured over 8 inches long with a wide bone-plated structure built like armor. It had powerful jaws capable of biting small dinosaurs. Its unique skeletal structure doesn't fit neatly into any known frog lineage and shows characteristics closer to ancient reptiles than modern amphibians. It remains one of the most bizarre amphibian fossils ever found. In a Colombian coal mine in 2009, researchers stumbled upon fossilized vertebrae and jaw fragments that were almost too big to believe. They belonged to Titanoboa, a prehistoric snake that could grow over 40 feet long and weigh over 2,500 pounds. But what caught scientists off guard was its skull. It didn't look like modern snakes. The shape of its jaw and skull bones suggested a feeding style and muscle structure never seen before. It was a predator on a whole different scale, and its remains still don't quite match any known lineage. When amateur fossil hunter Francis Tully discovered a strange fossil in 1958, he couldn't have imagined it would become one of the most baffling mysteries in paleontology. Named the Tully monster, the creature's remains include a long torpedo-shaped body, stalk eyes, and a clawed proboscis. For decades, no one could figure out if it was a vertebrate or an invertebrate. Some modern studies and high-tech scans, it still doesn't fit comfortably into any known phylum. Some scientists say it might not even belong to any existing group on Earth. So I ask you, is the Tully monster an alien fossil? I'll let you decide that one. In the early 1900s, miners working in Lovelock Cave uncovered what appeared to be giant human skulls and bones. Some of the skulls were said to measure over 12 inches from crown to base and had jawbones large enough to fit over a normal man's head. Early reports were dismissed as exaggeration, but photographs and museum records confirm the existence of abnormally large skulls. While skeptics say they were simply large humans, others argue the size and proportions don't match any known human population. To this day, the origins of these skulls remains a complete mystery, and many of them have mysteriously vanished from public view. When archaeologists began excavating in the dried up remnants of Lake Texcoco near Mexico City, they didn't expect to find what looked like the skull of a creature straight out of mythology. Buried deep beneath ancient sediment, they uncovered a large, elongated skull that resembled a serpent, but not like any snake that we know. Its bone structure didn't align with modern reptiles. It had wide set forward-facing eye sockets and a jaw structure that suggested immense bite force. Some thought it might be a ceremonial carving, but further analysis revealed real organic bone material. To this day, no one has definitively classified what animal it came from. In 1997, a group of explorers entered an ice cave deep in the Altai Mountains of Siberia. What they found inside defied logic. A humanoid-like skeleton, partially frozen, with a long, narrow skull and unusually large eye sockets. Even stranger, the remains had 6 fingers on each hand. Russian scientists reportedly took samples, but no peer-reviewed study was ever published. Some believe it was a hoax or an ancient burial artifact, while others suggest it was a new species or maybe not even from Earth at all. The lack of transparency has only deepened the mystery. When fossil hunters first uncovered the massive skull in Egypt's Valley of the Whales, they were convinced they'd discovered a sea serpent. And honestly, who could blame them? This thing had terrifying razor-sharp teeth, a serpentine skull over 5 feet long, and bones that twisted like an aquatic snake. For decades, no one knew what to make of it. Eventually, scientists classified it as a Basilosaurus, a now extinct species of early whale. But here's where things get weird. Basilosaurus didn't look or behave like any whale alive today. It had a long, eel-like body and jaws that suggested it was a vicious predator, not a filter feeder. In fact, it looked more like a sea monster than a mammal. Even today, paleontologists debate whether Basilosaurus fits neatly into any evolutionary lineage. It's technically a whale, but nothing about it makes sense, especially with that skull. In 1929, along the muddy banks of the Atape River in Papua New Guinea, researchers found what looked like a human skull, but when they cleaned it off and took a closer look, it became clear that this wasn't just any old relic. The skull was thick-boned with a sloped forehead and an unusually heavy brow ridge, traits that didn't match the anatomy of any local population. At first, people thought it might be the skull of an ancient tribal person or even a misidentified animal, but decades later, new analysis revealed something shocking. The surrounding sediment showed marine microfossils, meaning this individual may have died in a tsunami. Possibly the oldest known tsunami victim ever recorded. Still, that revelation didn't explain the skull's shape or size. Some anthropologists have quietly speculated that it could represent a long-lost human subspecies, or even something else entirely. High in the limestone caves of China's Yunnan province, researchers stumbled upon something totally unexpected in 2012. 2 human-like skulls that didn't match any known species. These remains belonged to what scientists would later call the Red Deer Cave people, and they raised more questions than answers. The skulls were thick and robust, with short, flat faces and wide cheekbones, but their craniums were oddly shaped, smaller and more primitive than modern humans. Here is the real kicker. Radiocarbon dating showed these individuals lived just 14,500 years ago, which means they were walking the earth at the same time as Homo sapiens. Some experts thought they might be hybrids between ancient and modern humans. Others wondered if they were an entirely unknown branch of our family tree. Despite years of study, their exact identity remains one of anthropology's weirdest unsolved cases. is. How did they survive so long without leaving more of a trace, and why haven't we found anything like them since?
In the icy ground of Siberia, scientists have dug up baby mammoths so perfectly preserved they still have eyelashes. One of the most famous is Lyuba, found in 2007 by a reindeer herder. She's around 42,000 years old, but she still has skin, fur, internal organs. Even the milk from her mother is still inside her stomach. Another calf, Yuka, was found with strange cut marks on her bones, like something or someone had been trying to carve her up. Could have been ancient human butchering, attacks from other predators, but the truth is nobody knows exactly what happened. Every time one of these calves gets pulled from the permafrost, though, it cranks up the conversation about cloning, but even if they could bring one of these things back, should they? Once again in Siberia and Alaska, scientists have found ancient bison that are so well preserved they still had red in their veins. One of the best examples was discovered in 1979, a frozen bison they named Blue Babe because of this bluish tint from the minerals in the soil. The thing had muscle, skin, even visible wounds. It had clearly been killed by something, and then it froze before it could rot. But here's something pretty cool. These mummified bison showed signs of being stalked and eaten by predators that do not exist anymore. Deep claw marks, crushed vertebrae, and punctures that match the bite force of predators that have been extinct for a very, very long time. And scientists haven't just found one, there are multiple ancient bison mummies turning up as the permafrost melts, and each one paints a clear picture of this brutal predatory world buried under the ice. They're also keeping samples for cloning research potentially, so if you ever wanted to see a prehistoric beast brought back from the dead, they are kind of working on it. In Yukon, Canada, buried in the permafrost, scientists uncovered the frozen remains of Ice Age horses that once galloped across the tundra in massive herds. Obviously, they weren't like today's horses. They were stockier, hairier, adapted to survive in some of the harshest conditions Earth has ever seen. One foal, perfectly preserved, was found in a gold mine in 2018, still covered in reddish-brown fur. Hooves, eyelashes, even its stomach contents intact. It was over 40,000 years old, but looked more like it had just lain down for a nap. The species, Aquis lambe, went extinct thousands of years ago, but DNA from these frozen animals are so well preserved sometimes, scientists are seriously considering using it for cloning. The idea is to bring them back, and not just as a curiosity, but possibly to repopulate the tundra with them to help slow permafrost melt. Because right now it's melting faster than ever, and we're seeing more and more pieces of an ecosystem that hasn't seen sunlight in tens of thousands of years, and not everything coming out of the ice is dead. In 2014, scientists digging through 30,000-year-old permafrost in Siberia found something that was very much not extinct, a virus, a massive one. So big you could see it under a regular microscope. They called it Pithovirus sibericum, and it's part of a terrifying new category, giant viruses. Two words you just don't want to hear right beside each other. Well, this ancient giant virus actually reanimated after being frozen for tens of thousands of years, and more of these ancient viruses have been found since, buried in melting ice, all still capable of waking up and infecting hosts. The one they revived didn't target humans, just amoebas, thankfully. But that's the part that makes researchers nervous. If some ancient virus can survive that long, what else is waiting to thaw? And are we even remotely prepared for it? Because you can quarantine, a lion, you can contain a mammoth, but a virus you've never dealt with before? Good luck. In Canada's Yukon Territory, scientists came across bones and fragments of an animal that sounds made up. Giant Ice Age camels. Yes, camels in the snow. Kind of a bizarre image. Not the two-humped animals we know today, obviously. They were massive and built to survive brutal cold, not scorching heat. They had long legs, thick fat stores, and bones tougher than steel. Fossils of these ancient camels were found in gold mines near Dawson City, preserved in permafrost so well, researchers were able to extract collagen from their bones, something that usually doesn't survive past a few thousand years. These camels would have roamed the same icy landscape as mammoths, direwolves, and saber-toothed cats. Some estimates say they stood over 9 feet tall, and while they might not look terrifying at first glance, just their sheer size, the power, the fact that they existed existed in this totally different version of North America, it makes them feel more like monsters than mammals. Scientists still don't completely understand how they adapted to such extreme environments or how they disappeared, but every time the ground thaws a little more bones come up, and we're starting to realize just how alien the Ice Age really was. Deep in the frozen wilds of Siberia, a creature straight out of prehistoric times was found curled up in the permafrost, a baby saber-toothed cat. It was discovered in 2020 near the Indigirka River, and despite being over 35,000 years old, the thing looked like it had only been dead a few days. It had thick fur, skin, claws, even its internal organs. It was all still there, and yes, the tiny sabers too. Scientists think it might have been buried in a landslide and flash frozen before decay could even start, and wasn't alone. Another cub, a few years younger, was found in the same region, preserved the same eerie way. But nobody's rushing to thaw these little killers out. The deeper they look, the more they realize just how little they know about these ancient predators. There's something about seeing a baby version of something so dangerous, though, that just hits different. Like, it's cute, but also very much not. In 2016, a gold miner working near Dawson City in Canada's Yukon Territory came across something in the permafrost, a perfectly preserved Ice Age wolf pup, frozen for over 57,000 years. It wasn't a skeleton or a pile of fur and bones, it was an entire wolf, with skin, fur, tiny claws, even some of its whiskers were still intact. Genetic testing showed that it came from an ancient extinct branch, older than modern gray wolves, and adapted to a world most humans wouldn't survive 5 minutes in. They think it died inside its den. Maybe the roof collapsed, maybe the ground shifted, but either way, something sealed it in tight and froze it solid before decay had even had a chance to start. And that kind of preservation doesn't happen unless the timing is perfect, and honestly, it's a little creepy how perfect it was. The more scientists studied it, the more questions they had about its species, about how it got so well preserved, about what else might be hiding under the ice just as intact. In the Siberian permafrost, scientists found 2 cave-lion cubs so well preserved they didn't really look ancient, they looked recent. But these weren't house cats. They were baby versions of Panthera spile, aka the Eurasian cave lion. These things were massive, possibly larger than modern lions, and built for brute power. They hunted mammoths, they hunted bison, they hunted each other. One study found bones of a cave lion that had been gnawed on by another cave lion. The 2 frozen cubs, dubbed Sparta and Boris, are estimated to be around 30,000 years old, and scientists still don't know how they died exactly, but they're so well preserved, they're actually talking of cloning. The thing is, nobody's sure what kind of animal behavior you'd get out of these things if you actually defrosted them. Their instincts are 30,000 years old and hardwired for a world we don't live in anymore. So what could possibly go wrong there? In 2015, researchers in Siberia discovered a frozen woolly rhino calf that had been locked in ice for over 34,000 years. Its name is Sasha, and it's the only baby woolly rhino ever found. And it's not just bones, this thing still had skin, hair, a stubby little horn, even muscle tissue. But don't let the baby part fool you, woolly rhinos were absolute tanks. Adults could weigh over 2 tons, with horns up to 3 feet long, and you'd think for their size that they'd be slow too, but fossil evidence shows they could charge like a freight train, and they likely had tempers to match. These animals were built for war against the cold, against predators, and sometimes even against each other. Ancient cave art shows humans were just terrified of these things, often drawing them mid-charge or goring other animals, or again locked in battle with each other. If anyone's thinking of cloning a few of these things, they better make sure the fencing is just really strong. You can't see them with the naked eye, but Deloid rotifers are kind of freaky. These tiny aquatic creatures were found frozen in the Siberian permafrost, buried 11 feet deep and at least 24,000 years old. Scientists thawed them out and they started moving. So after 2.5 ice ages, they just woke up. They also cloned themselves. Deloid rotifers reproduce through parthenogenesis, which means they've got no need for males. They can just endlessly self-copy, and they don't just survive cold. They can endure radiation, starvation, dehydration, even the vacuum of space. Their bodies will just shut down but stay preserved. And then when conditions are right, they kind of reboot. Now scientists are wondering how long they can actually last and how many more are still down there dormant, waiting. In 2011, members of a tribe in northern Siberia found the remains of a steppe bison, perfectly preserved after being frozen for nearly 10,000 years. The bison was transported to the Yakutian Academy of Sciences, where scientists began to study it. Unlike other bison mummies discovered over the years, this one was almost entirely intact, with its internal organs in remarkable condition. Olga Potapova, collections curator at the Mammoth site of Hot Springs, explained that while bison mummies are not uncommon, they're usually incomplete, saying, quote, "Normally what you find with mummies of megafauna is partial carcasses, but this mummy was preserved so well that it earned a record for the level of its preservation." The bison, which was probably about 4 years old when it died, looked like it had starved to death. There was no fat around its abdomen, but its heart and digestive systems were pretty intact, even though some organs had shrunk over time. Researchers even managed to extract tissue samples from each organ, and for the first time ever, they found steppe bison brain tissue still preserved. In 2022, a nearly perfectly mummified baby woolly mammoth was discovered by a miner in the permafrost of Canada's Klondike goldfields, dating back around 30,000 years. The calf, thought to be around 1 month old when it died, was a female and measured just 4.5 feet long. Researchers described it as the most complete mummified mammoth found in North America. A lot of its skin and hair was still intact. As an Ice Age paleontologist, it had been one of my lifelong dreams to come face to face with a real woolly mammoth, said Grant Zazula, a paleontologist with the Yukon government, going on to describe the mammoth as, quote, "one of the most incredible mummified Ice Age animals ever discovered in the world." The discovery happened when a mine worker hit something unexpected while digging. The team stopped all their work and brought in geologists who managed to recover the mammoth's remains, and just in time because a storm had been rolling in. Analysis suggested that the mammoth may have died after getting trapped in mud while grazing, with grass found in her stomach. In 2018, yet another incredible discovery was made in Siberia. The nearly perfectly preserved mummified remains of an Ice Age horse, believed to have died between 30,000 and 40,000 years ago. Its body was so well preserved that even tiny details like the hairs in its nostrils and around its hooves were still visible. The foal was found deep in a crater, about 328 feet or 100 meters deep, during an expedition in Yakutia. It was around 2 months old when it died. The mummified body was almost entirely intact, with no visible damage. Scientists collected samples from the foal's hair and tissue and found it belonged to an extinct species known as the Lena horse, which was genetically distinct from the wild horses that still roam the area today. This species lived in Siberia tens of thousands of years ago and disappeared long before modern horses evolved. In 2016, biologist Steve Emsley was in southern Antarctica when he came across something kind of confusing. It looked to be a recently abandoned Adelie penguin colony. There were mummified chicks, guano stains, pebbles from nests, but the thing is, Adelie penguins hadn't been spotted in the region for centuries. What Emsley soon discovered was that the penguin remains were far older than anyone could have imagined. Radiocarbon dating of the bones, eggshells, and mummified skin showed that these penguins had been dead for thousands of years. The rapidly melting ice in Antarctica revealed these ancient penguin remains. The penguins had likely settled in the area during warmer periods when the sea ice melted early, allowing the birds to reach the area and build their nests. The most recent colony, which had been buried during the Little Ice Age about 800 years ago, was finally uncovered as the region's ice began to recede. What you're looking at here is a tardigrade, aka a water bear. Now, is this a newly discovered alien species? Well, I wish, but no, these things actually exist right here at home. They're just really, really tiny, which I'm thankful for, because imagine if that alien-looking thing was the size of just even a regular house cat. That would just be horrifying. Tardigrades, nicknamed water bears, are one of the most resilient animals on the planet. They're microscopic animals that are known for their ability to survive in very extreme conditions all over the world. In places like Antarctica, they've been found frozen in ice for thousands of years. And what's amazing about these things is their ability to go into a kind of state of suspended animation. When conditions are harsh, like extreme cold or dryness, tardigrades dry out or freeze and enter a kind of hibernation. And when researchers thaw them out, they can come back to life. Water bears have even survived space travel in this dormant state. This makes them one of the toughest known organisms in the world. 2007 and 2008, two baby mammoths, later named Lyuba and Chroma, were found in Siberia. They were so well preserved that researchers were able to piece together how they died, even though both calves, one about 1 month old and the other 2 months old, died more than 40,000 years ago. Scientists used CT scans to find that the two mammoths probably choked on mud after falling into water. Daniel Fisher, a co-author of the study, stated the mud was like a really thick batter that they got clogged in their trachea and they were unable to dislodge by coughing. Basically preserved them from taking another breath. Lyuba and the 1 month old calf was discovered by a reindeer herder. Chroma was found in 2008, frozen upright in permafrost. Scavengers had eaten parts of her heart, lungs, and skull. But both mummies still showed a neonatal line on their teeth, a marker of stress during birth, which helped scientists estimate their ages. CT scans of Lyuba showed signs of what's called a mammalian dive reflex, showing that she fell through the ice into a muddy lake where she tried to clear the mud from her airways but eventually suffocated. Chroma, who had a belly full of breast milk, also had mud in her trachea, but her death is a bit less cut and dry. But according to researchers, it's possible she fell into a river, broke her back, and was then buried in mud while trying to escape. In 2015, scientists in Siberia discovered a baby woolly rhino, perfectly preserved in a frozen riverbank. Nicknamed Sasha after the man who found it, the rhino calf is the most complete specimen of its kind ever discovered. Sasha lived around 10,000 years ago, was about 1.5 meters long, or almost 5 feet, and 0.8 meters high, about 2.6 feet, much smaller than the fully grown adults, which could reach up to 15 feet long. According to Albert Protopopov from the Yakutian Academy of Sciences, baby woolly rhinos are incredibly rare to find, so this was a pretty amazing discovery, especially because it helps researchers learn more about the early life of these animals, which they didn't really know much about before. Woolly rhinos went extinct around 10,000 years ago. Climate change and habitat loss likely led to their extinction, but some scientists also think overhunting may have been a part of it. Around 30,000 years ago in Siberia, a tiny cave lion cub was making its way across the tundra when a sudden mudslide or crack in the permafrost caused the cub to fall and get trapped. The cub was buried in ice, preserving her fur, skin, and organs in almost perfect condition. This poor cub, later named Sparta, was discovered by mammoth tusk hunters in 2017, poking out of the melting permafrost in Yakutia, Siberia. Sparta is probably the best preserved Ice Age animal ever found, said Love Dallin, one of the study's co-authors, going on to say that even her whiskers were preserved. Sparta died about 28,000 years ago, and she was actually found alongside another cub named Boris, who was even older, dying around 43,000 years ago. Both cubs were about 1 to 2 months old when they died, with their sharp teeth just starting to emerge. Cave lions were closely related to modern African lions and lived across the northern hemisphere during the Ice Age. Unlike today's lions, though, these were, of course, adapted to freezing cold weather. In 2020, a perfectly preserved bear mummy was discovered in the Siberian permafrost. Siberia again. But anyway, it wasn't quite what scientists expected. At first, researchers thought they'd found the remains of a giant extinct cave bear, but eventually they realized the bear was much younger and from a completely different species. The bear was found by reindeer herders on a remote island in the East Siberian Sea. It was so well preserved that scientists could still see its skin, fur, claws, teeth, nose, internal organs, and even body fat. The remains were named the Etherican bear after a nearby river. At first, researchers at the Lazarev Mammoth Museum believed the bear was a cave bear, a massive species that went extinct about 22,000 years ago, but this bear was only about 3,460 years old. Turned out to be a young female brown bear standing just over 5 feet tall and weighing around 172 pounds. It was probably around 2 to 3 years old when it died. The bear's stomach contents revealed it had been eating plants and birds, with feathers still found inside its belly, which is incredible when you think about it. It also had signs of spinal injuries, which may have contributed to its death. In 2016, a gold miner in Yukon, Canada discovered something frozen in the ice. It turned out to be an ancient wolf pup, which had been almost perfectly preserved for 57,000 years. The mummified gray wolf, known as Zur, was found in the Klondike goldfields near Dawson City. Lead researcher Julie Machin, an anatomy professor, called it, quote, the most complete wolf specimen ever found from the Ice Age, going on to say all her soft tissue, her hair, her skin, even her little nose is still there. She's just complete, and that is really rare. Using radiocarbon dating and DNA analysis, scientists confirmed Zur died at just 7 weeks old. The remains were especially important because they were discovered in North America, unlike most finds in Siberia, as you've seen from this list, which are harder to access. Machen and her team were able to link Zur's DNA to both ancient Beringian wolves from Yukon and Russian gray wolves, which means that ancient wolves from North America and Eurasia mixed. Zur's remains also showed them what Ice Age wolves ate. The assumption had always been that they mostly ate bison or oxen, but as it turned out, this wolf mostly consumed aquatic animals, much like modern wolves in Alaska. This video was uploaded to YouTube by Paranormal Planet, who'd been exploring an ice cave in Hallstatt, Austria. Most of the video is pretty standard touristy type footage of the cave until we get to the end and see whatever this is. That is a pretty freaky looking creature. Now, my first thought was like, I don't know, maybe it's a frog or something, but according to the uploader, this thing was the size of a large man, and they were also standing far enough away that they wouldn't have picked it up in this kind of detail if it was something as small as a frog. So if that's to be believed, then this is a pretty strange piece of footage, and honestly, the more I do look at it, the less frog-like this thing really looks. I mean, frogs don't really articulate like this, and they don't usually chill in ice caves either. And the way it bends its limbs almost looks like how a human would climb, except it's way too long and spindly to be a person. So I don't know what this is. Let me know your thoughts down below. This next video was posted to Facebook by a man named Clay Shiner. He was filming the woods one evening because he spotted something moving just behind the tree line. Turns out it was not a bear. The thing that really struck me about this video is how long this thing's arms are. At first it just looks like, you know, a typical formless black shape hiding in the trees like so many Sasquatch videos you see. But when it steps forward a bit and stretches its arms out to the sides, it's like, damn, those are long, very ape-like, and very creepy. Reddit user Adjacent Gunman posted this image with the caption, "Over a year ago, this picture was taken by a trail cam back on my property. This version has been lightened. It's something holding a dead coyote by the throat, and it stands about 7.5 to 8 feet tall." He also posted an unedited version of the image. He said he based the thing's height off of where its eyes are compared to his cabin. Now, this thing is hard to make out, but there's definitely something there. Could it be a bear standing on its hind legs? Possibly, but the way it's holding its prey, it looks almost humanoid. But I don't know, maybe that's just my wishful thinking. I wholeheartedly want Bigfoot to be real. Uploaded to the YouTube channel Hola Bible in 2011, this video really creeped a lot of people out. The uploader said he'd been hearing some strange sounds coming from the forest behind his home in Oregon. Keep in mind, he lived 6 miles from the nearest city. He went out to investigate with a night vision camera. Well, he didn't get very far before he came across the source of these strange noises. Crouching in some brush was some sort of odd-looking, hairless creature. He zooms into the thing a bit, trying to make out what the hell it is, and then this happens. So it looks like Gollum was lurking around this guy's woods, or an alien, or a rake. It looks like a lot of things, all of them creepy, none of which you'd want skulking around in your backyard. I just hope this dude moved. And finally, I have another piece of Bigfoot footage for you. This video comes out of Russia, and in it, we see some folks filming some woods near their property. They'd spotted something sprinting through the trees, and what they see is pretty shocking. What's really cool about this video is how the thing moves. How many supposed Bigfoot videos do you see where it's just this figure like lumbering through the trees, like a dude in a costume, unsure of their footing? You kind of see them trying to keep their balance. Well, that is not the case here. This thing is sprinting at high speed and leaping across the ground as if it's an animal that is very familiar with its environment. That's why this has become such a well-known clip in the Sasquatch community, which no, I'm not a part of, but my interest is still very much there. What you're looking at here may not look like much at first glance. It's a snake. I mean, big deal, right? Well, the thing is, this is an aerial photograph taken way up in a helicopter. That snake is said to have been 50 feet long. Back in 1959, Colonel Remy van Leerde, an experienced Belgian World War II fighter pilot, was flying a helicopter over the Congo. As he's flying over the jungle in the Katanga region, he spots something moving down below. He claimed it was a massive snake, and it would have had to be for it to catch his eye way up in a chopper.
Then I was already flying for 25 years, so I have a very good experience of measuring things. And I would say the snake I saw there was close to 50 foot.
The snake had green and brown scales and a head that was apparently 3 feet long and 2 feet wide. You could fit a grown man in its mouth. And as he flew in closer, the snake rose up off the ground about 10 feet into the air like it was trying to strike at the chopper. Van Leerde circled around a few times so someone else on board could snap a photo of it. Of course, skeptics have their doubts, but he stuck to his story up until his death in 1990. But what do you think he saw out there in the jungle? A new species, a leftover from the dinosaur age, or was the whole story a hoax? Let me know what you think in the comments. This next story takes us deep into the heart of Texas, a little rural spot called Dabina out in Fayette County. Michael Demmel captured something really strange on a hunting camera on his property. He has a bunch of these cameras set up, using them to track wildlife like coyotes, bobcats, and raccoons. These motion sensor cameras take about 100 pictures a day, and Michael goes through them every single day. He's been doing this for 10 years, so when he says something looks off, that's really saying something. Well, one night he captured whatever this thing was. He said he thought it was a monkey at first, and to be fair, in the blurry photo it kinda does look like one. Of course, that would still be very, very strange. There are no monkeys just running around in Texas unless one escaped from a zoo, and no, there were no monkey jailbreaks reported. So he shows the image to some friends, tries to get some answers, and the photo eventually hits the local news. Some say the thing looks a lot like a chupacabra, the legendary cryptid that's been blamed for livestock deaths for decades. Others think it has a bit of an alien or skinwalker kind of vibe. Now, the creature's about as big as a medium-sized dog, but the body shape, the face, totally off. Michael said, "In the 10 years I've been reviewing my cameras, I have never encountered anything like it." Even the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department got involved. They looked at the photo but ruled out any normal animal, saying it didn't look like a baby deer or anything they could easily identify. I always liked to imagine Spider-Man was real when I was a kid. Kinda always hoped I'd see him swinging around up there one day. Well, I would have been thrilled to see this next video. This footage was captured at the pedestrian bridge in Kiev, not where you'd be expecting to spot the web slinger, but superheroes do get around. Now clearly this is a person crawling under the bridge, but even so, why? I mean, this is pretty dangerous. That water down below does not look very deep. Unless this person has actual web slinging abilities, if they fall, they're getting hurt or worse. So who is this person? Is it just a thrill seeker? Are they out of their mind? Or is there a chance that this isn't even a person at all and that the camera person caught something otherworldly crawling under that bridge? This piece of footage was uploaded to Reddit by user KeyProposal8529. Some sort of strange creature was peering out at them from the woods. They wrote, "Hello all, I live near the Trail of Tears in Missouri. As I got home one night I saw this thing in the woods by my house. From where it was standing, it has to be tall because there's a ditch right below where it stands. Any ideas? I'm terrified. Yes, I stayed in my car until I got the balls to run inside my house. Now, I have no idea what this thing could be. It's hard to make out, but if the Redditor is telling the truth here, then this is a pretty creepy piece of footage, because they pass by this area constantly. I mean, it's right outside their home. They know when something is out of place. A Reddit user out in the Midwest has been spotting a strange creature in their neighborhood. First, they posted these images along with a caption reading, "These are photos taken in the Midwest from an iPhone at night. The cryptid in question randomly appears in the same spot. Once a person begins to approach, it will vanish. It was seen again a few weeks ago and moved at an incredible speed across a few backyards. A local dog will bark at the spot that it appears in, even when it's not there. Trail cams will be set up soon. Please give me some ideas as to what it could be." The Redditor also posted an update with a video attached. This time, we can supposedly hear whatever this strange creature is. They wrote in the description, "We've got a video of the cryptid making what sounds like a scream. My friend was trying to find where it was standing but couldn't see it. Once the video ended, it appeared again in his yard but vanished as he went to get his phone again." Did a fisherman just capture footage of the real-life gill man? Apparently a guy was fishing near Barnegat Bay in eastern New Jersey when he saw something poke its head out of the water. He had no idea what he was looking at. The more he looked at it, the thing just kept rising and rising until the whole upper half of its body was out of the water, and it was clear that this was not your ordinary animal. I mean, yikes. How'd you like to be swimming in the water with this thing? I gotta say, this creature looks pretty convincing. It definitely gives me the ick, but there are a couple fun comments that I wanna mention as well. One person says, "This is BS. If anyone saw that, they'd run, not record for 3 minutes," which, fair enough. I can see where they're coming from there, but someone else responded, "It's called a stare down. The person out of fear and the frog out of confusion. Hence the term scared stiff." Also a good point, but I really just love that they called this thing a frog. And also someone else commented, "This is what happens when people stop eating frog legs." People just love calling this guy a frog. I don't know what frogs you people are looking at, but anyway. This next clip was shared by Sunny Vader on YouTube. The footage was captured by campers in Clearwater County, Alberta last month. The uploader had been tearing down their camp when they spotted this large, dark figure lurking in the trees nearby. He managed to quietly capture the thing on camera before it made its way back into the woods. They probably thought it was a bear at first, but after zooming in on the thing with the camera, they probably immediately changed their mind. It seems to be standing upright. Not that bears can't do that, but they usually won't for very long. It looks to me like this is a massive, hairy ape man spying on a couple hikers in the woods. On March 21st, something strange was spotted floating low over the rooftops in Saladin, Iraq, and yes, there's video of it. So as you can see, this strange object has a very odd shape. It looks like you took a flying saucer and then made it vertical. It almost looks like Boba Fett's Slave One from Star Wars. It also looks like it has these long trailing tendrils like a jellyfish, not like any drone I've ever seen. The object drifted smoothly over the buildings and a local managed to capture it on camera. The clip quickly spread online, just another piece of video to add to the growing list of UFO sightings this year. People who saw it described it as otherworldly and eerily silent. Some think it might be high-tech military equipment, others think this may actually be proof of something not from this world. But what do you all think? Now, stepping away from frogmen, aliens, and Sasquatch for a moment, let's talk about some mysterious jellyfish that were spotted just a few months back. The video shows two types of jellyfish that no one's ever seen before. At least ones that haven't been documented by science. The footage comes from researchers at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA. First up is this one here. A very bizarre looking creature. It's so hard to make sense of. It's just so different from anything we see day to day here on land. Almost looks like it belongs in space. As one of the researchers said while filming the thing though, "I've never seen one of those. Have you?" And then another researcher's like, "Nope." They also captured footage of this smaller jellyfish. NOAA scientists couldn't identify this one either. Both were found during a deep sea dive off the northeastern coast of the US near Newport, Rhode Island. We see so many supposed videos of Bigfoot, but barely ever any Dogman videos. Well, that all changes today. This dashcam footage comes out of Bladensboro, North Carolina. A man drove up to his property late at night when he got the fright of his life. Some big, hairy creature had been lurking just outside his home, but his headlights hit it and the thing scuttled off into the trees. Not in the most graceful manner, I must add. This Dogman is rather, dainty in its movements, does this kind of like toddler hop as it moves away. It can't be too hard on Dogman though, he's not as used to being in the spotlight, always being outshined by the ever so famous Sasquatch. Well, you wanted clear footage of a cryptid, here it is. It's not often we get supposed Sasquatch footage this clear and up close. Usually these videos are shot from a distance and the creature is almost impossible to make out. I know I say this almost every time I show a Bigfoot video, but understand that I sift through a lot of garbage and I just don't bother putting most of these videos on lists like this because these videos aren't meant to put you to sleep. Although if you use them for that, I'm not offended. Close your eyes, go back to bed. Is this video genuine though? I mean, how can I say for sure? I do like it, I'll say that. There's more going on here than a monkey suit from Party City. This thing looks to have some bulk to it. There's color variation in the fur. If it is a hoax, I think it's pretty well done. Well, this is a freaky piece of footage. Not only is there a massive dead cow floating through the water, there's something under it. Gonna guess that something was involved in the death of the cow. I mean, good lord, look at the size of this thing. There's a full-on dinosaur swimming in this river. Of course, this is a croc or a gator. I couldn't actually find where this video was filmed, but the thing is an absolute beast. I know, very insightful of me. Take a look at this strange photo. Picture was snapped on Navajo land between cornfields and Greasewood, Arizona. It's been making the rounds on social media lately. According to the person who shared it, her aunt snapped the picture at the end of a small canyon after hearing weird noises while tending livestock on her property. There's not much more info about it, other than claims that the creature was seen again a few days later. The family chose not to go after it. They figured it was best to just leave it alone. Wise. Apparently stories about creatures like this have been told in the area for generations though. What do you think of this one? Only explanation that I have outside of this being a genuine Sasquatch, of course, is a black bear. There are black bears in Arizona. I'm not sure if they frequent this specific area. If anyone from Arizona can enlighten me in the comments, that would be great. A video from Buenos Aires this week has gotten people talking about possible demons or something strange. Very strange. This short blurry clip that's been getting shared around quite a bit on social media, at least on the forums I check out, shows what looks like a street or garden in Argentina. Here we can see some sort of bizarre dark figure crawling on all fours toward the camera while a few dogs walk around in the background. The creature seems to have very long spindly limbs, but it's hard to see clearly because it's dark and the video quality isn't really the best. Local news says this happened in the town of Saladillo, and people living there are reportedly scared of whatever it was. Some witnesses have called it demonic and say it has inhuman agility that lets it climb walls and jump between trees. A local firefighter who didn't want to give his name said that, quote, something was going on. Another witness added, he's something big. He doesn't walk on all fours, he walks backwards. He's disjointed, he comes apart, his head is upside down while his body moves in an impossible way. All of that said in Spanish. Of course, this series of photos were posted to Reddit a couple weeks back by SnakeTree1911, who wrote, I work as a land steward in the northeastern part of the US. Part of my job is reviewing images taken by our game cams. We recently pulled a cam from a fairly remote area, which hasn't been checked in a long time. These images caught my eye. None of the naturalists on our staff could ID this thing. I'm not sure if I believe in cryptids or whatever, but I don't know what this thing is. It's not a deer, it certainly isn't a bobcat, and if it's a black bear, it's the biggest one I've ever seen. I included a daytime photo so you can see that it's not just some weird shaped rock or whatever. I don't know, let me know what you think. And I will pose that same question to all you fine people watching. What do you think? This is known as the Corfu Island creature, sometimes called the Grecian dolphin. It was first mentioned in 2015 after this strange photo started spreading online, taken off the coast of Greece. We see what looks like some sort of dolphin-like thing breaking the surface, but it's obviously not a normal-looking dolphin. The photo was taken near Parga by a Scottish tourist named Harvey Robertson, who was on a boat tour with his family drifting through the sea caves, just trying to photograph the usual green color of the water. He didn't notice anything strange at the time, but later, while looking through his phone, he realized he'd caught something. In one photo, a gray shape rises out of the water. In the next, it's gone. Robertson said it looked like an elongated manatee. Some people just call this one a hoax, of course. Others think it may have actually been a real creature though, some sort of mutated animal. There's also another theory that this could be a surviving Ambulocetus, an extinct ancestor of whales. Here's some more well-known Sasquatch footage. Help, I think I saw a skunk ape. On October 28th, 2013, a Mississippi hunter named Josh Highcliffe uploaded an unsettling video to his YouTube channel. According to him, the footage was taken just west of Tunica, Mississippi. What he caught on camera looked like a large, dark, bipedal creature crouched low and almost hidden inside what appeared to be a hollow tree stump. At first, Highcliffe didn't think much of it, saying, "Initially, I thought it was a pig. Then I noticed these broad shoulders and a head held high with its hands. There was this huge black monster crouching near a dead cypress tree about 50 meters away. I immediately got scared and wanted to run away. I didn't even think about shooting. However, as soon as I realized that nobody would believe me, I felt like time had stopped. So he pulled out his phone and started recording, but then it stood up. And as it rose, it was suddenly clear how big this thing actually was. That's when Highcliffe panicked and took off." This series of images have become some of the most infamous sea monster photographs in history, aside from the Nessie photo we've all seen 600 times. Back in December 1964, a Frenchman named Robert Laseric was crossing Stonehaven Bay near Hook Island, Queensland, with his wife, kids, and his first mate. They just bought a motorboat and were basically living island life for a few months. While drifting over a shallow lagoon, Laseric's wife noticed something sitting on the bottom. It was massive, dark shape, stretched out and completely still. Laseric later described it as around 30 feet long, shaped like a giant tadpole. Smooth skin, no fins, no spines, no visible teeth, mostly black with faint stripes. Everyone on board thought it was dead, long enough that they actually got into the water to try and film it, and that's when it moved. As Laseric approached with the camera, the creature opened its mouth and started gliding toward them. They bolted back to the boat, and by the time they regrouped, the animal was gone. Photos of the creature spread in newspapers and magazines and quickly became infamous. Were these genuine images of an unknown sea creature, or was it just a case of clever angles? Or plastic sheets shaped and weighted underwater? Some said it may have been a giant swamp eel, but those rarely exceed 5 feet. And finally, we come to the undisputed king of unexplained creatures captured clearly on camera, the Patterson-Gimlin Sasquatch footage. Yes, it's been talked about to death, but not by me. This is actually the first time I've talked about the footage on this channel, which is impressive considering how many Bigfoot videos I've done. What can I say? This is still the best piece of video evidence we have for the creature. The camera is steady. We get a nice long shot of it walking across an open stretch of land. There's no trees blocking the view. It's not captured from too far away. There's just a reason why this is not just the best Bigfoot footage ever captured, but the best cryptid footage in general. There's still debate to this day as to how authentic this is. I've heard convincing arguments on either side, and it's really the continuing conversation surrounding this footage that's kept this one alive. People have analyzed every frame of this video, examining the creature's odd gait, what looks like muscle moving under the fur. Hoax or not, it's a damn intriguing piece of footage, and that's why it's at the top of this list. What you're looking at here is known as the Marvin the Monster footage. It was actually lost media for a long time, but it resurfaced about 8 months ago. The story behind it is that in the early 60s, Shell Oil was using an underwater robot called Mobot to scan the seafloor off the coast of Santa Barbara, looking for oil deposits. During one of those runs, usually dated to February 1961 or 1962, the robot's camera picked up something very strange. Floating in the water was this large creature that didn't dart away or vanish after a few seconds. It stayed in view for more than an hour, slowly moving in a very specific spiral pattern. The thing didn't swim like a fish or drift like debris. It rotated and coiled in on itself over and over. Scientists who looked at the footage thought it might be some kind of colonial sea creature, which is basically a single organism made up of lots of tiny connected animals that kind of live and move together. But that was just an educated guess. We still don't really know what this thing was. The full recording was never officially released. Only fragments and isolated frames still exist. In 2000, the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office received 2 anonymous photos showing a large, hairy, ape-like creature. The letter that came with them was from an elderly woman who'd been noticing apples disappearing from her back porch. She claimed she snapped the pictures after spotting this creature, worried it might be an escaped orangutan. The images quickly earned the nickname Mayaka skunk ape and are still some of the clearest images ever taken of not just the skunk ape, but any Bigfoot-like creature, in my opinion. At the time, a bunch of skeptics pointed out that the creature looks similar to a Bigfoot statue that used to be displayed at a Ripley's Believe It or Not museum, but looking at that statue, yeah, it's a pretty weak comparison. I mean, they're both hairy, but that's pretty much where the similarities end. Reports of the skunk ape go back to 1929, and there are still reports to this day. Since 2010, sightings have been recorded in 48 out of Florida's 67 counties. Back in 2022, a man named Henry Hayes was out jogging in Merrickville, Sydney, when he came across whatever the hell this thing is. It was sitting on the street after days of heavy rain. In Harry's own words, "My gut says it's some kind of embryo, but with the pandemic, World War III, and the floods going on right now, this could very well be an alien," end quote. He grabbed his phone and started poking the tiny creature with a stick. It didn't move at all. He posted the video to Instagram. Some people guessed it was a shark embryo or a mutated tadpole. Others agreed with the alien theory, but even biologists were puzzled by the thing. Elia Lisa, a zoologist, posted the pic herself saying, "Hey world, what is this thing? I thought possum/glider embryo, but I have no context or scale and none of my peers can agree. What is this? Hashtag mystery blob." And to this day, we still have no definitive explanation. This video comes from 2001, but it was shared online in April of 2006. I remember watching it in the very early days of YouTube. It was one of the first supposed Bigfoot videos I watched aside from the Patterson-Gimlin footage. And if you're looking for a creature caught clearly on camera, well, this is better than 90% of the Bigfoot caught on camera videos you'll find all over the internet. And it looks pretty convincing. The fur doesn't look like something you'd see on a cheap costume, and there's shape to the creature and what looks like visible muscle under the fur. The footage was captured by a man named Harley Hoffman, who kind of went off the radar not too long after this video hit the web. Does that mean he hoaxed the whole thing and just didn't want to keep up the lie? Is the footage genuine, but he just had a hard time handling all the attention? Who knows? But when it comes to Sasquatch footage, this is still one of my favorite clips. This piece of footage was captured at a home in North Carolina. The video was posted to Reddit by Whole Negotiation 1843. The homeowners were terrified when they got a notification from their home security camera. They were expecting maybe a raccoon or something, but when they saw this pale, spindly thing, they immediately called the cops. As for what to report, well, at first they thought it was some naked dude crawling through the yard, but it didn't take them long to realize this thing did not look human. As for what it was then, the case has yet to be solved. So this is a photograph of a snake, of course, I mean, big deal. But the thing is, this image was supposedly captured from a helicopter. Here it is zoomed out. In August 1959, a Belgian military helicopter was heading back toward Kamina, flying over the Katanga region in what's now the Democratic Republic of the Congo. On board were pilot Colonel Remy Van Laird, along with 3 other men. One was an engineer named Adjutant Kint, who had his camera on him. From roughly 400 feet up, 2 of the men spotted something near a wrecked termite mound that looked like a fallen tree trunk. The problem was, it was moving. By the time they got Van Laird's attention, they'd already flown past it, so Van Laird turned the helicopter around and dropped lower. And that's when it became clear they were not looking at wood. It was a massive snake. Van Laird made several low passes while Kent rushed to get a photo. He managed one single shot before they were forced to leave, running low on fuel. The last thing they wanted to do was land near that massive serpent. All four men estimated the snake at about 14 meters long, or around 45 feet. It sounded ridiculous, but locals already had a specific name for snakes that big. Normal pythons were called moma, but giants like this were known as pumina. One settler had reportedly run into one years earlier along a nearby railway line. Years later, Van Laird said the head lifted several feet and claimed that if they'd gone any lower, it could have struck the helicopter. On Molokai, a Hawaiian island, scientists just officially described a completely new bee species called Helios pamako. They actually spotted it back in 2024, but it got officially described this year. These bees are completely black, no yellow markings like other bees. The name comes from the Hawaiian word pamako, which means mourning or grief. Because the bees are entirely black, it's like they're dressed up for a funeral. These things are tiny, probably make their nests in cracks under rocks or boulders, kind of like other Helios species. This is the first new bee found on Molokai in more than a century. So far, it's only been found on a small section of the island's eastern slopes. When researchers were working near the Juruá River in the Brazilian Amazon, they came across this tiny frog, brand new species of frog. This is its official name, and it was only officially described this year. The thing is barely the size of your thumb, but the colors make it impossible to miss. It looks really cool with the copper reddish brown body and the blue lines running down its back. It's part of the poison dart frog family, so like its relatives, it's toxic. The poison comes from what it eats, mainly ants and mites packed with chemicals, which it then turns into its natural defense. So far, this new frog's only been found in one small area, which means anything that happens to that patch of forest could wipe out the species before we even get to understand it. In Cambodia, a team of scientists went exploring the limestone hills near the Thailand border and ended up discovering 3 new gecko species in one night. These hills, called karst landscapes, are these crazy jagged limestone formations full of caves and tunnels, and according to snake specialist Pablo Sinovas, you can quite literally go into a cave, collect a few specimens, and most likely there'll be some that are new to science. End quote. It was quite the adventure. The team had to navigate over sharp rocks, hidden holes, and they had to watch out for venomous snakes as they climbed through the caves with headlamps. They also came across scorpions, whip spiders, and frogs along the way. They carefully photographed the geckos, frogs, and snakes. Then the animals were tagged, measured, and had small tissue samples taken to figure out if they were truly new species. Out of about 40 animals collected that night, 3 geckos turned out to be new. Sinovas is hoping their work will convince Cambodia to protect these hills, saying, "Would you turn Angkor Wat into cement? You wouldn't." Well, some of these species should be considered national treasures as well. And if you think 3 new species of something is nuts, how about 40? Scientists just dug up a whole bunch of new moths. 40 species nobody knew about. All from the Philippines, but they didn't even have to travel there. These moths were collected more than 30 years ago and had been sitting in museum collections in Berlin and Copenhagen. They just hadn't been studied yet. They belong to the snout moth family, which is super diverse but often overlooked. Some of them look almost identical to each other, but thanks to genetics, researchers could tell they were totally separate species. Dr. Theo Ledger from a museum in Berlin said, "The Philippines is one of the world's biodiversity hotspots, home to many endemic species found nowhere else. That's why documenting biodiversity in this region is so urgent before it's lost." End quote. They worked through tons of specimens, and over half turned out to be completely new to science. The research also shows how much could be hiding in museum collections and, of course, in the remote mountains of the Philippines. Large areas haven't been explored there at all, so there are probably even more moths and other species out there waiting to be found. And there's now a newly discovered animal officially named Chewbacca. Deep down in the tropical western Pacific, scientists finally got around to officially describing a coral. Meet Iridorgorgia chewbacca, a deep-sea bamboo coral named after everyone's favorite Wookiee. The species was formally described in 2025, but it was actually first spotted on video back in 2006 off Molokai, Hawaii, second time that place has shown up on the list, and again in 2016 near the Mariana Trench. These corals can reach up to 4 feet tall. Thousands of tiny polyps cover their branches, extending their tentacles to catch plankton. When they're feeding, the branches actually look kind of fuzzy, which of course adds to the Chewbacca vibe. In a bamboo forest in southwestern China, scientists just recently came across a tiny spotted frog that immediately caught their attention. After a few trips to Shishui County back in 2018, the team realized they'd found something special, a brand new species, now named this, or the Shishui leaf litter toad. These frogs are small, only about 1.5 inches long, with bumpy skin and slender limbs, and their eyes are multicolored, a mix of copper and silver. They perch on leaves about 4 feet off the ground near streams. So far, they've only been spotted in Shishui County, which is around 1,250 miles southwest of Beijing. I didn't even know wolf snakes existed, but apparently there's a new one, and it's named after the crocodile hunter Steve Irwin himself. This brand new snake was discovered on Great Nicobar, which is basically the southern tip of the Nicobar Islands just off the coast of Sumatra. Scientists named it Irwin's wolf snake. The team explained why they named it after Steve. In their words, his passion and dedication to wildlife education and conservation have inspired naturalists and conservationists worldwide, including the authors of the paper. This new snake is shiny black and just over 3 feet long. It hunts lizards, frogs, and small mammals, and it might only live on this one island. Now, that's pretty cool, but it does mean it's super vulnerable. The scientists who found it are already calling it endangered, just because its home is tiny and humans can mess it up pretty quickly. Deep in a handful of South Korean caves, a research team led by Kyung-hoon Jeong at Jeongbuk National University came across 4 new species of pseudo-scorpions, which are basically tiny arachnids that look like scorpions from the front because they have pincers, but they don't have a stinger, and they're usually only a few millimeters long. These ones belong to a group people call dragon pseudo-scorpions because their jaws are oversized compared to the rest of their bodies. They're blind, pale, and adapted to total darkness. The team found them during field surveys, then preserved the specimens in ethanol so they could run what they called integrative taxonomy, meaning they compared everything like their genetics and physical features to confirm these were new species. Each one lives in a single cave or karst system, and the study points out that, quote, each of these new species is different, both in their genetic makeup and how they look, even though they share the same general cave-dwelling lifestyle. South Korea has over 1,000 caves across the Taebaek and Sobaek mountain ranges, and a lot of them haven't been studied at all. So if 4 new species showed up in just a handful of them, I mean, who knows what else could be lurking down there. Far at the bottom of the world, ocean scientists have been exploring one of the most remote parts of the Southern Ocean. And man, have they found a lot of weird stuff. Earlier this year, a team aboard the research vessel RV Falkor collected nearly 2,000 specimens around the South Sandwich Islands and already found 30 new species. They found this carnivorous sponge that they're calling a death ball sponge, which is covered in tiny hooks it uses to trap its prey. Not at all how we usually picture sea sponges. Then there are armored iridescent scale worms, 3 new species of sea stars, and a whole bunch of previously unknown crustaceans like isopods and amphipods. Actually, the team thinks they may have discovered an entirely new family of amphipods. But even with all this, the Southern Ocean is still mostly unexplored. Michelle Taylor from the Ocean Census said, "To date, we have only assessed under 30% of the samples collected from this expedition, so confirming 30 new species already shows how much biodiversity is still undocumented." Up in the hills of India's eastern Ghats, scientists just found a brand new skink. That's a type of small, smooth lizard. This is its official, hard to pronounce name. Let's put it right here. It's also called the Deccan gray seal skink. What makes this a big deal is that it's the first new skink like this found in the area in more than 80 years. Researchers spotted it in 2 protected nature reserves. Notice how long and skinny this thing is. It almost looks like a snake, but it has little legs. It's a funny looking creature. It also has a kind of see-through lower eyelid. Scientists checked its DNA to make sure it really was a completely new species, and it turned out to be different enough from its closest relatives to earn its own name. This skink is only the 9th one of its kind ever described, and it's the first one from this area in decades. Finding it helps scientists understand more about how lizards' limbs and toes can change over time. Some will lose digits, some are almost snake-like, and this one is kind of somewhere in between.
Next, we are talking about the black frogs. Out of all the strange and eerie changes in Chernobyl's exclusion zone, the sighting of pitch black frogs might be one of the most unsettling. Eastern tree frogs, once a vibrant green, now sport deep inky black skin, blending into the desolate landscape like shadows. This isn't just a freak accident, instead it's an eerie form of adaptation. Scientists believe that these frogs' dark skin acts as a natural shield, protecting them from the radiation still lingering in the soil and the air. By absorbing less harmful energy, their blackened color may give them a surprising survival edge in this nuclear-scarred environment. But while this adaptation could be seen as a victory for biology, it's also a reminder of just how deeply the forces of nature can alter life when pushed to the brink, forcing creatures to evolve in ways we can barely comprehend. In our number 4 spot today, we have the wolves with strange fur patterns. There's something jarring about locking eyes with a wolf whose coat looks as if it's been crudely repainted by nature's own shaky hand. Within Chernobyl's silent forests, some wolves now sport baffling fur patterns, patches that never grew back, odd stripes where there should be solid gray, and splotches of color that defy any recognizable pattern. Scientists suspect that these peculiar coats hint at deeper, invisible changes within their DNA, possibly caused by the relentless radiation that seeped into every inch of their environment. What's truly surprising, though, is that the wolves aren't just surviving. They're actually thriving. In a world abandoned by humans, they've staked their claim as top predators, hunting in small packs and darting through ruined buildings like ghosts. Next, we are talking about the mutated wild boars. It's one thing to stumble across a wild boar in the forest, but discovering one with bizarrely shortened legs, an overgrown head, and tusks twisting at unnatural angles is another level entirely. In Chernobyl's exclusion zone, these heavy-set animals have soaked up a cocktail of radioactive isotopes, contaminating their bodies and warping their development in startling ways. Some boars appear top-heavy and clumsy, as if their own skeletons are struggling to keep pace with the genetic mischief unleashed by the fallout. While not every individual shows such blatant distortions, enough of them do to leave an unsettling impression. These creatures are shaped by an environment that continues to bend the rules. Each gnarled tusk and awkward limb stands as a living reminder that radiation does not fade quietly. It leaves its fingerprint on every generation that must somehow learn to survive in its shadow. Next, we are talking about the insects without wings. It's hard to wrap your head around a butterfly that can't take flight, yet that's exactly what researchers are finding in Chernobyl's exclusion zone. Delicate creatures like butterflies and moths, once symbols of gentle transformation, now struggle with stunted wings that look half-grown or never form at all. Instead of fluttering gracefully over the tangled fields, some are left crawling on the ground, vulnerable and off balance. Scientists believe the radiation's relentless tinkering with genetic material disrupts critical stages of growth, leaving wings twisted or completely absent. It's an unsettling sight that strips these insects of their most defining feature. And finally, ending off this list today, we are talking about Przewalski's horse. These horses first originated in Mongolia and were wild horses that became endangered. They first became endangered due to hunters who would often kill the stallion, which of course would provide many difficulties in terms of reproduction. These horses also weren't doing very well in captivity, which made things even more difficult. This, combined with the harsh winters which would often claim their lives, left things looking quite grim for the species. In the late 1990s, however, in an effort to help repopulate these animals, 30 of them were released into the Ukrainian side of the exclusion zone, and it is believed that some of these original horses are actually still alive today, which is amazing, but camera trap images have also shown young horses and foals, which means they are repopulating, which is a huge win. They're expanding population in such a harsh environment, which could mean that they might potentially be able to return from the brink and go on to continue as a species, which is something we always want to see. Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have the two-headed calf. In the aftermath of the Chernobyl disaster, the exclusion zone became a breeding ground for some of the most bizarre and terrifying animal mutations in history. One of the most unsettling discoveries was the birth of a two-headed calf. Farmers near Chernobyl were stunned when they witnessed an animal with not one, but two fully formed heads and underdeveloped limbs, a grotesque reminder of the disaster's enduring legacy. Scientists immediately linked this horrifying mutation to the intense radiation that not only killed life in the area, but also twisted the very DNA of surviving species. As the impact of radiation altered the fetal development of these animals, this calf's survival became a tragic symbol of how nature was forced to adapt in the face of devastation. Over time, chilling photos of the two-headed calf circulated, serving as a haunting visual of the unseen toll the disaster took on the natural world, forever etching this mutation into Chernobyl's dark and twisted history. The disturbing sight of this calf is just one of the many strange and horrifying mutations found in the zone, proof that Chernobyl's legacy is still alive in the most startling and unnerving ways. Next, we are talking about the glowing spiders. Deep in the eerie forests of Chernobyl, something straight out of a horror movie is happening. Spiders, those creepy creatures we're already wary of, started crafting glowing webs in the radioactive wastelands. But this isn't just some freakish mutation, it's an odd twist of nature's ability to adapt. The radioactive particles creeping through the area have infiltrated these arachnids, altering the very makeup of their silk and causing it to glow under UV light like a neon sign of doom. It's both chilling and amazing at the same time, a very bizarre, fluorescent testament to how radiation doesn't just destroy, it rewires every part of the environment. Despite the terrifying look of these glowing webs, the spiders seem to be thriving, proving once again that life in Chernobyl might be twisted beyond recognition, but it's certainly not backing down. Next, we are talking about the gigantic catfish of the Pripyat River. No one cruising along the Pripyat River expects to come face to face with freshwater behemoths that could dwarf a grown adult, but that's exactly what lurks beneath these murky waters. Catfish measuring a jaw-dropping 9 feet or more have become a bizarre local legend, their enormous shadows drifting beneath the submerged ruins of old docks and tangled reeds. The strange truth is that these giants aren't sporting visible mutations like extra fins or gnarled faces. What's unsettling is the sheer scale of their growth. Without normal predators around and with radioactive contaminants subtly affecting their environment, these fish have been free to balloon to unbelievable proportions. They've essentially taken full advantage of their strange new world, transforming from ordinary river dwellers into something that feels more at home in a monster movie. Such extremes of size raise uneasy questions about what the radiation may be doing to the entire food chain and how nature warps when left to wander uncharted territory. Next, we are talking about the albino moose. Nothing quite rattles the senses like catching a glimpse of a massive snow-white moose quietly stepping through the abandoned woodlands around Chernobyl. With their unusual earthy browns seemingly washed out, these pale giants cut ghostly silhouettes against broken fences and crumbling buildings. Scientists believe this unnatural albinism is directly tied to radiation tinkering with the genes that produce skin and fur pigment. What makes these eerie creatures so unsettling is how easily they blend into the fallout's strange new normal. Towering figures that have adapted to become haunting, colorless symbols of the region's invisible scars. Each measured step through the underbrush feels like a chilling reminder that even the toughest inhabitants of this land have been reshaped in ways that defy both logic and expectation. Next, we are talking about the birds with deformed beaks. There is something deeply unsettling about watching a tiny swallow struggle to pick up the simplest seed because its beak curves at an impossible angle. In Chernobyl's exclusion zone, researchers have reported sparrows and swallows sporting twisted, elongated beaks that look more like poorly bent wire than a sleek feeding tool. These deformed deformities aren't just cosmetic, they can make it nearly impossible for birds to gather enough food, threatening their chances of survival. Scientists link these bizarre changes to genetic damages from lingering radiation, the same invisible force that's quietly reshaping the area's entire ecosystem. These deformed beaks aren't just a tragedy for the birds themselves, but a glaring symbol of how nature, when exposed to something as catastrophic as nuclear fallout, veers down a path it's not supposed to follow.
Next up, we have the Blind Rondevel flat gecko. For over 34 years, this little finger-sized gecko was only known from 2 specimens collected back in 1991, and many doubted it was even a real species. Then in May of 2025, researchers Aaron Peterson and John Davies from the Endangered Wildlife Trust were helicoptered into the remote canyon in South Africa's Blythe River region, the same area where the original specimens were found. Well, in just a few days, they found about 20 to 30 of them, photographed 7 and collected tissue samples to prove it is a valid species. Darren Peterson said, "In terms of how we felt after hours of searching for the gecko and not finding it, we started to doubt whether the gecko still existed. When we found the first individual, well after midnight, we were ecstatic." He added that this rediscovery will allow the species to be officially reassessed and protected. Next on the list is the black-napped pheasant pigeon. This chicken-sized pigeon was last seen by scientists in 1882, and for more than 140 years, the only physical evidence of it was in dusty museum drawers, until September of 2022, when a conservation team used camera traps on Ferguson Island in Papua New Guinea to capture photos and video. Jordan Boersma, one of the lead researchers, said they had, quote, less than a 1% chance of catching it on camera, and then he described scrolling through the shots as the most surreal moment of his life. Co-leader John Mittermeier added, "Seeing those photos of the pheasant's pigeon felt like finding a unicorn." They spent a month trekking through rough terrain and setting up 20 camera traps. It was actually local hunters who pointed them in the right direction. Without their help, this bird probably would have stayed, quote-unquote, extinct. Now that it's been found again, the big focus is making sure its home doesn't get wiped out by logging. Just back in May, a diver off Indonesia snapped the first ever photos of a live Indonesian coelacanth in its natural habitat. This is a huge deal, because while coelacanths were once thought to have gone extinct 70 million years ago, only 2 species are known to still exist today. There was one caught on camera back in 2013. That was a West Indian Ocean coelacanth found near South Africa. This new sighting is a totally different species, first time it's ever been photographed alive in Indonesia. The fish was spotted in the Maluku archipelago, about 475 feet deep. Marine biologist Alexis Chapuis from Unseen Expeditions was the one who saw it. And diving that deep is not easy. He had to use mixed gas diving, which comes with serious risks like decompression sickness if you mess up the timing. You can also die if you mess up the timing. Blank Pain, the watch company that helped fund the dive, called coelacanths often mistakenly called a living fossil or dinosaur fish, and pointed out they've been around for over 400 million years, long before dinosaurs. The Kashmir musk deer is one of those animals people thought was long gone. No confirmed sightings since 1948. Most experts assumed it had gone extinct. But then in 2009, a research team working in the forests of northeast Afghanistan, they spotted one. There were multiple sightings, including images of live ones on camera traps. Suddenly, an animal believed to be wiped off the map was back. These deer are super elusive. They're small, shaggy, they don't have antlers. Instead, the males have these long, fang-like teeth that look like vampire tusks. It's pretty wild. They also produce musk, which is highly valuable and unfortunately has made them a target for poaching for hundreds of years. That's part of why people thought they were gone. As one of the team members told reporters at the time, this is the first time we've been able to confirm the species is still out there since the 1940s. Now the challenge is making sure that they stay out there. The pygmy tarsier is this tiny, big-eyed primate that looks like a cross between a Furby and a gremlin. It's nocturnal, lives in trees, and hadn't been seen alive since the 1920s. So for decades, people figured it had gone extinct. But then in 2008, a team hiking in Indonesia's Lor Lindu National Park suddenly came across one. Not only did they see it, they actually managed to trap it. The team includes Dr. Sharon Gursky-Doyen from Texas A&M University, who said it was like finding a living fossil. They were hiking up steep mountains, setting traps high in the forest canopy, and boom, there it was. Tarsiers are incredibly hard to spot. They're tiny, quiet, they live way up in the trees, only moving around at night. But what makes the pygmy tarsier different is its size. It's even smaller than the others and only found in a very specific misty patch of forest in Sulawesi. The Cuban solenodon is an animal that seemed to vanish off the face of the earth until someone randomly spotted it and proved everyone wrong. This weird little creature is native to Cuba and looks kind of like a rat with a long, twitchy snout. And would you ever guess that it has venomous saliva? Because it does. It's one of the only mammals on Earth that can inject venom. People thought it had gone extinct way back in the 1970s. Nobody had seen one since 1890, and for a while was basically written off. That changed in 1974 though, when not one but 3 solenodons were caught alive. But even after that, sightings stayed extremely rare. It wasn't until 2003 that another one popped up, and this one got a name: Alejandrito. Scientists studied him for a couple days, found he was perfectly healthy, and then released him back into the wild. Problem is that the Cuban solenodon is ridiculously hard to find. It burrows underground, only comes out at night, and lives in dense mountain forests. And because it only has 1 litter per year, it doesn't bounce back easily. The terror skink sounds like something out of a 50s monster movie, but it actually sorta lives up to the name. The lizard was first described way back in 1876, and then it just disappeared. For over 130 years, scientists assumed it had gone extinct. No one had seen one alive. But that changed in 2003 when researchers in New Caledonia came across a live one. The terror skink is nearly 2 feet long, has curved fang-like teeth that are actually strong enough to tear through crab shells. It's an apex predator that hunts birds, crabs, also other reptiles. When it was finally photographed alive, scientists were stunned, not just that it was alive, but that it had gone unnoticed for such a long time despite being such a fierce hunter. Since then, it's only been seen a handful of other times. For the longest time, the giant squid was like a sea monster from folklore. Sailors would tell stories of encounters with them, but no one had ever captured photographic or video evidence. Marine biologist Richard Ellis even called it the, quote, most elusive image in natural history. And he wasn't wrong. In the 90s, there was a photo going around that claimed to show a diver next to a giant squid, but it turned out to be a different species. A big squid, sure, but not the squid. It wasn't until 2001 that we even got video of a baby giant squid. And then in 2002, someone in Japan found a full-grown one washed up on a beach, still alive, but barely. They tied it up by the docks and it died overnight. At least they got a picture. The real breakthrough came through in 2004. 2 Japanese scientists dropped a camera 3,000 feet into the ocean with some bait. After 20 tries in 1 day, bam, a massive squid latched on. It thrashed so hard it left a tentacle behind. They ended up with over 500 photos and finally proved the thing was not just real, but actively hunting. Then in 2012, we finally got the money shot. Clear video of a giant squid. It was missing its feeding tentacles, probably from a fight with a sperm whale. It came in slowly, drawn by fake jellyfish lights and some bait, and it let them film for about 23 minutes. This fish was considered extinct. It vanished from records since the early 20th century. The Chell snakehead fish. Scientists hadn't seen it since specimens collected between 1918 and 1933 along India's Chell River. Then in 2024, a team led by Dr. Praveen Raj Jayas Aman finally caught and photographed 3 live specimens, confirming the Chell snakehead was still alive over 85 years after it went missing. It was so rare it became known as the world's most elusive snakehead. And the wildest part, locals in West Bengal had been catching and eating these fish the whole time without realizing they were eating something scientists thought was long extinct. As you can see, this tiny snake is shockingly small, just about 10 centimeters long, small enough to fit on a coin. It's called the Barbados thread snake, and after nearly 2 decades without a confirmed sighting, scientists were worried it had disappeared for good. But in March of 2025, land researcher Connor Blades and Justin Springer from Rewild decided to overturn hundreds of rocks in a little forest near a jack-in-the-box tree in Barbados. Blade said, "After a year of searching, you begin to get a little pessimistic." But they pressed on, and finally they did find one. The snake was transported live to the lab, filmed wriggling in a petri dish under a microscope, and finally identified. As Justin Springer put it, rediscovering one of our endemics reminds us that we still have something important left that plays an important role in our ecosystem. So, just goes to show you that tiny species can go missing for years, even on an island that's been mapped and visited by humans for hundreds of years. This next creature is called Tuatara. Just look at this silly, stubby-legged little lizard. Cute as can be, according to me. I know some people are freaked out by reptiles and lizards, but I really enjoy them. So these things can be found roaming around in New Zealand. They look like a lot of reptiles you've probably seen, very similar to iguanas, but these things have quite the history. They've been around for an estimated 225 million years. So once again, they're basically living dinosaurs, just very small ones. Pretty cool. What's also interesting about these things is that they don't have ear holes like modern day reptiles, so their hearing is, of course, limited, but they can still respond to low frequencies. Next up, we have the Chinese giant salamander, and when I say giant, I do mean giant. These are the largest amphibians in the world. Some of them can reach up to 6 feet in length, weighing in at about 110 pounds. That sounds like a salamander that would have been roaming the earth during the time of the dinosaurs, and they did. The Chinese giant salamander has been around since the Jurassic period, about 170 million years ago. These creatures are also known for their very unique and haunting sounds. They've been described as rather unsettling. Some people describe them as barks or hissing, but the creepiest noise is the high-pitched crying, almost like a very young human. Given how huge these things are and the fact that they clearly do not look human, that would be pretty freaky hearing a sound like that come out of an animal like this. But honestly, I still think these creatures are kind of cute in their own weird way. And we have another dinosaur, the Komodo dragon. These things are insane. They're huge, some of the biggest lizards on the planet, weighing more than a full-grown human in some cases, and these things are as dangerous as they look. They've been known to attack and even kill humans, and to top it off, their bite is venomous. Scientists have found Komodo dragon fossils that are about 4 million years old. These giant lizards are found in Indonesia today, specifically 5 islands, one of which is called Komodo Island, which, no surprise, has the largest population of Komodo dragons in the country. You can't just wander onto this island, not that you'd ever want to. It's very strictly a guided tour situation. If you ever visit, trust me, don't want to go alone. If you stray too far, it could be the last mistake you make. Komodo dragons are no joke. Along with crocodiles and alligators, they're one of the closest things we've got to real-life dinosaurs. These reptiles can reach lengths of 10 feet with razor-sharp teeth and venomous saliva. They eat whatever they can catch: monkeys, deer, boars, goats, and sometimes humans. They're just pure predators. Now, they don't attack humans all the time, but between 1974 and 2012, there were 24 reported attacks in Komodo National Park. The shoebill stork. These birds have been around for 30 million years at the least. If you were to look at every living bird today and you had to just pick one that looked like it had been around since the prehistoric times, it would have to be the shoebill stork, right? This is definitely the one I'd be picking. Look at the size of the beak on these things, very dinosaur-esque. Shoebills are found in the swamps and wetlands of Africa. They're massive birds, standing about 4 to 5 feet tall with a wingspan of 7 to 8 feet. They have this unmistakable shaped bill, which can reach lengths of up to 9.5 inches just on its own. This massive bill is a formidable weapon for catching prey, which is mostly fish. They're known to be very patient hunters, standing motionless for hours before striking at lightning speed. And these birds really are just as intimidating as they look. Highly skilled hunters that are capable of preying on animals as large as young crocodiles. And to top it off, they make this eerie clicking sound with their beak. They sound almost like an automatic firearm or the predator. What you are looking at here is a horseshoe crab. Now, crabs may not be all that exciting to you, but these ones are different. Horseshoe crabs are one of the oldest creatures on the planet. They've been a staple of the Earth for around 445 million years. That is a lot of years. That's back before the land split off to form the continents that we have now. Earth still consisted of one single supercontinent when these things were around. These ancient anthropods have seen old friends go and new ones come along, and when I say friends, I mean entire species evolve and then go extinct. They've seen a lot. And interestingly, even though they have crab in their name, they're not actually crabs. They're more closely related to arachnids.